I'm a really big fan of this. Hey folks, in the last video I took the basket case BMW to the drag strip and the car had a major malfunction. The upper radiator hose failed and dumped all the coolant all over the track. In this video we're going to repair that damage. We're also going to install a new steering wheel. Anyway, let's start with that radiator hose. Here's that radiator hose that failed. You can see the hose didn't just come loose from the plastic fitting. The plastic actually broke. Check that out. Look at all the pitting. That's crazy. Anyway, let's install this guy. Here you can see I put silicone grease on the hose fittings. This makes it easier to install the radiator hose, and it also helps to prevent damage to the O-rings in the hose. I would advise using silicone grease because it's safe for the rubber. The regular petroleum-based grease can degrade the rubber in the hose. Alright, we have our new hose installed. Now let's put some coolant in the system and fire it up. Here's a fun challenge: adding coolant one-handed while trying to operate a camera at the same time. Dun 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 dun. The coolant temperature is holding steady. After the incident at the track, I was concerned it may have blown the head gasket or warped the cylinder head. So I'm going to check for signs of oil in the coolant and coolant in the engine oil to see if anything bad happened. Now, this is hard to see on camera. It's difficult for the camera to see in here. But I looked in the coolant and I don't see any oil floating on top. The engine oil, of course, weighs less than water, so it'll float on top of the coolant. But I don't see anything. Also, if you look at the engine oil, it looks nice and clean. I don't see any of the chocolate mousse, so to speak, that happens when the coolant mixes with the oil. So I think I dodged a bullet. We're going to put this all back together and run it. Seems to be fine. Ignore the ticking lifter. Now that the repairs are complete, let's move on with the project. Next order of business is to install an aftermarket steering wheel. This steering wheel uses a 6-bolt mounting arrangement, so it'll need a hub adapter. This hub adapter should work. This old steering wheel is getting pretty grungy, so I'm going to replace it with that. Anyway, first step in removing the old steering wheel is to remove the airbag. The airbag has two bolts that hold it. They come in from the back, one on this side, one on that side. By the way, I used a Torx T27 bit. Anyway, the airbag is ready to come out. We just need to undo that electrical connector. Now we just need to remove this bolt with a 16mm socket. But before we do that, I want to make sure the steering wheel is straight. So that way when the new steering wheel goes on, it won't be crooked. Okay, anyway, the bolt's out. Now I should be able to just pull the wheel off. Although, I'm not sure if I can do this one-handed, but we'll see. Oh, that was easy. Anyway, let's install the new steering wheel. Okay, here's our hub adapter. On the back of the hub adapter, you'll see some recesses in the back that are designed to fit these two pegs in the clock spring. Also, there's a big hole right here for the wiring pass-through, right there. So this is supposed to install kind of like that. Also, I want to make sure that the bolt holes are lined up nice and vertical so the steering wheel will be straight. The steering wheel uses the smaller bolt pattern, which I think is 70mm diameter. Okay, the hub adapter is on. These two holes are nice and vertical, so when the steering wheel is installed, it'll be nice and vertical also. Now I just need to put the bolt in the center, and then I can install the wheel. By the way, where did that bolt go? Oh yeah. Okay, now comes the fun part. I get to install the horn button and the steering wheel and the trim ring all at the same time. I have to somehow make sure these all stay on here and they all stay lined up so I can get those bolts through the holes of all three of these things simultaneously. Should be fun. Oh, and in case you're wondering, the horn button goes on first. Then the steering wheel goes on top of that. Then the trim ring goes on last, and the bolts go through here. Oh, I forgot to mention the new steering wheel is 350mm diameter, which is just over 13.5 inches if I remember correctly. The old one was about an inch bigger, so that would be what, 375mm or 14.5 inches, something like that. Anyway, the new steering wheel is installed. You may have noticed I did not hook up the horn button. I'll take care of that on a later date. Somehow I misplaced the wiring harness for the horn button, so here I am back at the salvage yard. Luckily I found an E46. Oh, hey. And that's the wiring harness I'm looking for. Awesome. Okay, we're back in the car. I have the steering wheel removed so I can install the horn wiring harness. One issue I ran into is the hole that the wiring harness needs to go through. It's going to be really difficult to get the wiring harness in there and plug it in. So I'm going to remove this hub adapter, feed the wiring harness through the hole, and then plug it in before I reinstall this. We'll see how that works. Okay, so now I have the wiring harness fed through the hub adapter. This is the part that plugs into the clock spring. Speaking of which, here's where it plugs into on the clock spring. So let's plug it in and reinstall the hub. Okay, so these are the two connectors for the airbag. We're not going to be using those right now. These two connectors should be for the horn. There's a purple wire and a green wire. I've got the ignition key in position 1, so the horn will be active. And if I touch these together, things should happen. Okay, so the horn relay is activating. I don't know if you can hear it. Can you hear it clicking? But I guess the horns don't work. We'll have to address that issue on another date. Anyway, we know that this is the wiring for the horn, so we can go ahead and install the horn button. Okay, the horn button has two wiring connections on it, one for each wire. It doesn't really matter which wire goes where, because basically all the horn button does is it connects the two wires together. Alright, steering wheel is in. Let's make sure the horn works. Or I should say, let's make sure the horn relay works. Alright, we're good to go. We'll have to deal with the horn on another day. Anyway, that's it for this video. See you next time. Oh, I forgot to mention, I used a flat steering wheel. In other words, it does not have a dish in the center. I did that because the adapter adds some depth to the steering wheel, and with the wheel plus the adapter, it's about the same depth as the stock steering wheel. So if the steering wheel was dished, then the wheel would be sticking out way too far. Oh, and if you're wondering what I'm going to do about the radio controls on the steering wheel, yeah. Alright, let's check to make sure the horn button works.